What's up, everyone? Alex here. So you're probably noticing that I'm recording in my car. This is a really weird thing because now it's like, ooh, is he vlogging now and stuff? But no. So funny thing, last week, we decided that the second floor of our house needed to have a new floor. And so what's happened is that all the carpet has been pulled out and it's going to be replaced with hardwood, which means more reflections audio wise. Yay! But as you can probably see here, like there's just so much bare, wood and all that other stuff that like it really is impossible to just work there and have like a quiet environment. And because furniture needed to be moved, I had to pack a lot of my stuff. Like they had to be like, unwired, unpacked, set aside. That way we can easily move the furniture and any furniture that I basically have in my room. And that sucks, by the way, because like now I don't have access to like gameplay footage and all that stuff. But to me personally, like I found it really important to release this particular video on March 31st. So I decided I'm going to make the best of what I got. I got this like lavalier from like TikTok and stuff, which is, it's okay. It's not the best, but it's only okay. And I'm literally recording this at a nearby park. So if for some reason you hear birds chirping or the cars that are passing by behind me, I do have to apologize. Like this is just the best I can do. So as the title implies, this is a channel update, but this is also, more importantly, a life update. And for folks who just don't really like involving themselves on their, YouTuber subscriptions lives or anything like that, what I'll say as a TLDR, but it obviously is not the whole thing, is that the host of the channel is going to change in the future, but I will still be around writing and producing everything and stuff. That's all you need to know. So you can move on if you want, or if that somehow does the opposite and made you curious about who the hell is going to be the new host, well, you just have to stick around, basically. Somebody's going to probably do a TLDR, like in the comment section or something like that. And to be quite honest, like, okay, sure. But like, I feel that it's very important for me because I'm one of those people who hates being either misinterpreted or misunderstood. And this moment that we're having right now is something that is very special to me because I just want to come out and be honest and be truthful about where I'm headed, and why that's happening, right? And I want to start that off by asking you if you've ever noticed that there were videos in the past, within the past 8 years that have had hashtags that say non-binary and genderfluid, which is my gender, right? And I bring that up because like I've been gender fluid and non-binary since like 2010. So it's been a very long time. I called myself by gender. So it was a very rigid kind of like, all right, well, you're male or female kind of thing. And I basically identified as that because I never really truly felt comfortable being just male, right? Like I felt like my expression, presentation, can be both. And I'm not like a traditional male that's like aggressive, macho, or whatever the hell. I feel like those values are, not, it doesn't match me, right? And as far as like my more female side, it's like, well, it's, it's not that I'm into like girly stuff, but it's like, okay, well, you have those qualities. Like, let's just kind of match that feeling with like the way that you look sometimes, right? And so I have made a point to while I want to hint at that on the videos, that I don't ever want Backlog Battle to all of a sudden flip and say, hey, this is about me being gender fluid or non-binary. That is absolutely not the point of this channel. And to be quite honest, it's never going to be that. It is like, I want Backlog Battle to be about games. And let's talk about that for a second. When I started Backlog Battle in 2017, I had the goal of creating a channel that lifted the conversations for JRPGs, indies, and niche games. Because, as you know, the most popular subjects and the most popular kinds of games that magazines and YouTubers cover are the super popular AAA games, right? Like, it's, you know, it generates the most views. It's by its very nature, like, a lot of people play them, and, you know, rightfully so. They are big budget titles that I play too. Like, I still need to get around to like God of War Ragnarok, which kind of, you know, honestly kind of nags at me. But there's also one other thing that I noticed that was happening at the time that to me was super, super disturbing, which is the kinds of ways that we were talking about video games in 2017 were starting to become very negative. No longer is it like an optimist view of like, oh, this could be cool, this could be not. It's been replaced with like, yeah, but it's probably gonna suck. It's you know, because this game is taking too long to make, or, you know, there's just so much pessimism that replaced all that optimism. And mind you, this was just starting at the time. Like, it did exist in some form, but it was just not that big. And then over time, I noticed that the conversations were just getting worse and worse. And mind you, this is like when Backlog Battle was slowly starting to get its legs and stuff. And I find that really sad, and I created Backlog Battle as a counterpoint to that. It's like if you're playing Resident Evil and you're basically exploring the mansion, and then you enter like a safe room, and you're like, whew, thank goodness for this safe room, right? Like, I can actually save, you know, I can look at my inventory and stuff like that. I wanted Backlog Battle to be that safe room from all of that conversation, right? Because there's a reason why those things exist, not just in video games, but also in real life. And because of how algorithms work, algorithms can't read your mind and your mental state. It's just going to keep feeding you like the most controversial and the most popular stuff, which is typically the most controversial and the most negative stuff, because it triggers our survival brain, which of course attracts more people. That's just the way that it is. And so I've always tried to create a more joyous, celebratory videos that really express the joy of gaming. And keep in mind that I'm not saying like this is like revolutionary by any means. I've seen others do the same thing, right, to the best of their ability. But I think what I see in those channels even right now is that they cannot avoid the negativity of, you know, of what's around them, that they're starting to become negative as well. And this is a question that I always constantly ask myself, like, why is it necessary to be quote unquote negative, especially if you're like a more positive channel? And the conclusion I came up with is that people love conflict. And so in a story, if there's no conflict, it's kind of boring. And so that's the time when I started creating not necessarily like incendiary kind of videos, but like topic videos where I'd bring up like, you know, the definition of a JRPG that, you know, for example, like Naoki Yoshida brought up, like, you know, at the time when it was kind of introduced in like, you know, like mid to late 2000, right? And that's just, I think that's a really good example. And I obviously would take a stance, but like I can see both sides, and I've always tried to present both sides of the argument, and then I basically present my own opinion of it, like where I stand. And this creates like kind of like an ebb and flow to the kind of content that comes out on the channel. And I've been able to navigate that pretty easily. Now, I bring this up because for some reason, a moral high ground of trying to be just a good person and trying to basically remind people that being diverse, equal, and inclusive, you get what I'm saying here, is bad. And this reminds me of one of my favorite people that I watched when I was a kid, Mr. Rogers. And I started watching a lot of his stuff like within the past year or so, just to kind of remind myself of, what kindness can bring. And I've always been a person who's kind and humble. And even though a lot of people cut me down, and mind you, you don't see it because I do all that stuff, the moderation stuff. A lot of that stuff is just noise in the comment thread, right? And it's challenging to be still kind and humble when there's such an overwhelming majority of negativity online. One of my friends on YouTube has pretty much, resorted to that, like with their, titles and all that stuff. And I don't blame them for it. It works for them, right? But for me, like, I've always maintained the fact that like Backlog Battle is always going to be this super high quality thing where things are really thought out, and that we kind of separate ourselves from everybody else because of it. And the proof is in the pudding. Like, I've released a lot of videos that hit 100,000 views, because a lot of the topics that I would bring up are pretty important, and it's something that connected with you personally, right? And as the channel has evolved over the years, so too was my opinions and, the way that I thought about myself. Over the past several years, I've had a lot of challenges personally that tested me as a person. And it's made me really think about what's important to me as an individual, especially since I'm moving through life now in my 40s, right? These challenges have made me see a therapist for like 7 years. Several therapists, actually, like 4 of them. And they all specialize in very specific things. And over the past several years that I've been doing Backlog Battle, that gender fluidity kind of just took a backseat, right? It became this thing that used to be there. But what was really fascinating about it is that because it took a backseat, there was something else that took over that was, quite frankly, very angry and very negative, right? And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what that was. And I remember around October of last year, my friend sent me like a video of Philosophy Tube. And of course, as many of you know, like Philosophy Tube is a trans woman. The video that he linked me was how Philosophy Tube handled announcing that she was going to go away and she was going to become who she is now. I saw that video and I was like, oh my God, I feel like one of those trapeze artists at a circus, and the safety net has just been kind of completely ripped from underneath me. And so I kind of panicked, because in terms of like my own gender fluidity, there's always been one question that I would ask to check to make sure that I'm still comfortable with my gender fluidity, which is, if you're presenting female and somebody clocks you as either trans or male when you're presenting female, would you be bothered by it? And before, I would say like, I don't give a shit, like, sure, whatever, like, it doesn't hurt me. But that answer changed after watching that video. The answer changed to a yes. That's a pretty big deal to me. And so I then sought help from a therapist who specialized in that sort of thing to work things out. And for about a whole month, I lived my life as a female Of course, I still release videos on the channel presenting like this. Needless to say, like, during this whole experimentation, I made a lot of TikToks. I transformed my Blue Sky account into one that reflects who I am. The same thing happened with my Instagram. I'm presenting female there. In my Discord, I'm pretty much like female there. And everybody has just been so accepting. And I guess where this is all coming to is that like in February of this year, so another thing happened that made me realize where all that inner anger that I told you about kind of came from. And that had a lot to do with my gender dysphoria. So for a lot of people, gender dysphoria is this disconnect between like their male bodies or whatever, or their actual at birth bodies with, you know, the kind of makeup that they have in terms of like their brain and how it functions. But it also manifests in a more sinister way, which is the way that I explained it to my friends. It's kind of like having an abusive husband in my brain. And here's the thing that's really crazy about this. Unfortunately, not a lot of people have done studies on this as to why this is, because the very few studies that have come up about this, it basically showed that trans people are pretty dang normal. Like in terms of their brain waves and composition, super normal. It's not even like a quote unquote disorder or a disease or something like that. And as some of you have seen, like the videos and stuff, like I'm pretty well articulated, and I'm also writing scripts like pretty well. I have a very strong creative streak, and a lot of trans people are like that too. But I could never figure out that piece, that abusive piece of me. And I kid you not, as soon as I kind of recognized that, and not necessarily put a name, but just a recognition of like, well, this is actually what's happening to you, that you're actually experiencing a form of gender dysphoria, like things started clicking. And I think the scariest thing to me was, I kid you not, like I started remembering things from my past, like when I was like a little kid growing up, which meant that whatever this kind of dysphoria was, like it was also preventing me from remembering very specific things about my past. Like, for example, like growing up, you know, like wearing my, you know, my aunt and my mom's like shoes, or reading like their stupid trashy novels and stuff when I was like, you know, less than 10 years old. But there was this one very specific memory that kind of really hurt deeply, which is like this memory of me in a dark room just lit by a CRT TV with static on there, and me just kind of laying on the floor right next to my bed, crying and sobbing, and me saying like that I'll never become a woman. And right after that, I succinctly remember, like every single day, like praying to God that I would just wake up the following day as female. That was a memory that, now that I remember it, like it's so crystal clear. Like that all this time, there was a part of me that was kind of like almost gaslighting me, preventing me from who I am. And like I told you, right now, at this very moment, I do feel like a trapeze artist without a safety net, especially because my transition to become a woman is now politicized. And I know many of you hate the fact that I'm even bringing up politics, but that's the reality of the situation right now. My literal presence in this world is politics. So the only place that I haven't been out as female is here on Backlog Battle. which brings us to the real channel update, which is, well, I'm trans. I'm transitioning to be a woman. I'm 3 weeks into hormone replacement therapy. And at some point in the future, Alex won't be greeting you what's up anymore. It's going to be Lexi, who is me as a female. And I wish so much to have made this video less dramatic than it is, because I had so many cool ideas for it. But as you saw, just things don't align. And maybe that is just a perfect metaphor for how I'm feeling right now, is that there are things that I don't feel are me anymore. And so I want to kind of get into what's going to happen. While it's cool that I'm trans and, you know, I'm thankful for your time watching this video, I do also think about this channel a lot in relation to that. In fact, I've thought about this for so long that when I discovered all this stuff was happening in October, literally the very first thing that I thought of was like, what about Backlog Battle? What about your community? And it's less about like, you know, like, oh, what's potentially going to happen? You know, like, will people watch you less or something like that? That was not even a worry of mine. But I think the biggest thing to me, the biggest deal to me about this coming out between you and me is I really wanted this to be like a fun coming out kind of thing. I did not want it to be like this whole thing of like, you know, car thing. And some of you are probably going to say like, well, why did this video have to come out on March 31st? Like, why? You could have just delayed it, made it special, even do it on your birthday. Why does it have to be March 31st? Well, March 31st is Transgender Day of Visibility. This is a day where all of us trans people just pretty much come out and say like, hey, we're trans. We exist. We might be less than 1% of the United States, but we exist. We are your friends, your neighbors, your husbands, your wives, your relatives, your family. And we're here trying to basically like make your life and ours the most pleasant it could ever be, you know? And this all rolls back to Backlog Battle, right? Like, I love seeing people of all shapes and sizes, you know, and whatever like kind of background you have, kind of engaging in this conversation about video games and JRPGs. Like, what I love about Backlog Battle is that we came together because we all love JRPGs so much that we want more people to actually play it. Because only by making JRPGs like higher and bigger than the way that it is right now do we actually see innovation. And what's really crazy is that over the past several years, you could literally see that. We wouldn't be getting something as like higher production, like Claire Obscure Expedition 33, without all of the other games that I've covered on the channel. Like, there was literally a time within the past several years where this renaissance for JRPGs is actually happening. And we are literally in the thick of it. Like, I see so many more JRPGs either coming from people from Japan or even people who were inspired by it, making games because they love this genre so much. And the same thing with indie games and niche games. And if you look at just the entire like scope of every single JRPG and the kinds of stories that they all tell a story of diversity, equality, and inclusion. It is literally the heart and soul of everything. And the reason why like this thing about DEI really kind of bothers me one bit is that people are making goodness into a bad thing. Yes, I understand that like there's this quote unquote rumor that like a company can be so swayed because of outside opinion. That hasn't stopped Mass Effect 3's ending from changing. You don't need an outside company to affect change. Like, by that very nature, everybody's suggestible. It does not make sense. But here we are. We have like a weird witch hunt happening in gaming that is literally like distracting us from actually enjoying JRPGs. For crying out loud, like, there is another Trails game happening and coming out later this year, 80 hours long, and some of you haven't even finished Trails Through Daybreak 2 yet because you're so damn busy being like keyboard jockeys arguing about everything on the internet. How the hell are you going to get through your backlogs if you're like on the internet just basically making people's lives miserable? I want to hear that. I want to hear the answer to that. But that's beside the point. With all that said, what's going to happen now, right? What's going to happen now? Are we going to start seeing Lexi tomorrow? Do you even have a voice that matches Lexi, or are you just going to like basically sound like this and dress up female? Again, I've thought about this. And the conclusion that I came up with is that no, that's not changing anytime soon. I don't have a timeline of when that will change, but I will tell you that I am going through vocal training to feminize my voice. And the best voice that I can do is this, which is not perfect. It's not even its final form. I want to find a female voice that matches this. And fortunately, with voice training, that's exactly what they're hired to do. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take at least a year. I started vocal training in January, even before like I started transitioning. And so I guess my answer is that not anytime soon, but it does happen. It's just going to happen, right? And so the reason why I'm announcing this, because now I feel like I'm GTA 6 and I literally announced the game coming out like years before, but the actual launch is like much later. It's so funny. But I just want to be upfront with you guys because you all have helped me be in this spot. And I couldn't be here without any of you. Even the people who are not watching this, right? Like the people who are just gonna wander into the channel like a year or so later and realize like, hey, Alex is gone, but there's this chick that's like, like doing the narration now for some reason. Hopefully nobody notices. I am trying to grow my hair. But I do want to answer some very important questions that I'm pretty sure a lot of you have, which is, okay, you're transitioning. Is Backlog Battle going to cover your transition and all of those kinds of other things that really are not about gaming? And firmly, my answer is no, zero. The fact that I'm spending like more than 30 minutes talking about my transition on this channel, to me personally, this is already way too much. Originally, I was just going to announce that, hey, I'm trans, this is what's going to happen, hey, bye. But I do feel as though it's important for me to share this experience with people just so that there's no like secrets between us and that I can feel at peace personally. Going back to what we're saying, Backlog Battle is purely about games. We will cover topics that are tangentially political if it has a gaming perspective on it. Like, this is not like going to be like all of a sudden we're going to be like, I don't know, activists or something like that. That's never, ever, ever going to be happening. Unless, of course, it's like, activists of like, hey, we need like new JRPGs or something like that. You get what I'm saying? The point is, like, if you loved JRPGs and indies and niche games, and you've always loved how analytical and how very specific and meticulous I can get when it comes to the mechanics of gameplay, and even giving you like some hints and stuff as to how like to play games, and get into games, and kind of like almost giving you a little mini tutorial so that way you can go on your merry way, that's never changing. Backlog Battle will always be about like trying to introduce new people to our beloved genres and making new fans of existing ones of other genres. That's why I made that freaking honkin' massive like franchise video where it's like, hey, you want to get into all these franchises? There you go. There's literally one video that you just need to watch, just one. You know, that was like my goal. Like, and I'm so happy how that turned out. And that's really where I'm at with Backlog Battle, is I love JRPGs so much that even though like all you Trails fans out there hate me for saying like, oh, you have, you know, you can start in this, and this, and discourage people from starting from like Sky because they're overwhelmed, duh, like, it's because I want more people to play this damn genre. Like, I love Trails so much, but damn it, people, like telling somebody that like it's gonna take you like hundreds, not even hundreds, thousands of hours to like get to like the point where like the game that they want to play, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I know there's valid things about that, but you can't convince me. I'm sorry. Anyways, so the other question then is like, all right, cool, Backlog Battle is gonna stay all about video games, all about JRPGs, indies, and niche titles, and reviews, and all that stuff. So where is, like, Lexi's stuff going to be? Well, fortunately, I actually started a new channel called LegitLexine on YouTube. But she already exists on TikTok as well. But I also want to be clear about the LegitLexine channel and say that while it's going to be chronicling my transition, I don't want it to just be about that. So one thing that I also wanted to do for LegitLexine is to cover movies. I love movies. I literally watched 16 movies over the past 3 months, and I want to watch more. And I don't have an outlet for that. And as I told you, Backlog Battle is just games. I also love anime, and I want to kind of get back into it. And I have my choice favorites, and I want that thing to live somewhere else. And I feel like LegitLexine is kind of like where I want those to be. There's one review on LegitLexine using my current female voice, which again, work in progress, so I apologize for that. That's basically like a review of Wicked Part 1, and I did my best with that, really. And as far as like my TikTok channel goes, like I'm pretty sure I've shown you like some footage of that throughout this video. And my TikTok is all about that exploration of what it's like being a trans person, and also like making jokes at the expense of being trans. Like, while being trans is politicized these days, I don't want it to just be like that entire identity of like, oh, trans equals politics. So I'm basically using TikTok as a means to explore topics and stuff like that trans people kind of, you know, face, and make lighthearted, you know, commentary about, you know, like what's happening with us and stuff like that. Like, it's basically taking that like more positive approach of video games from Backlog Battle and putting it into somewhere else. For like movies though, I mean, I feel like because you can't talk about gameplay and graphics and performance and all that stuff, like I'm still finding my voice in it, but you know, I hope that I can find a style that is, you know, just as entertaining. And a lot of people have told me, like the people who have seen like my first movie review have basically told me like, hey, you know what? This feels really different from Backlog Battle, and I really like it. Which I'm like, whew, thank goodness that it's different. And, you know, if you're curious about it, again, it's like youtube.com/@LegitLexine. It's probably like going to be on screen. And then on TikTok, it's basically like tiktok.com/LegitLexine. And again, like TikTok has a lot of like lip syncs, whether it's like sayings, songs, and whatnot, you know, that apparently I'm pretty good at it. Now, I have given you the 411 when it comes to like, all right, LegitLexine stuff. Now, I want to tell you guys why all of that is super important to Backlog Battle. Again, this is a channel update about Backlog Battle, and I feel like this is, to me, very important. by allowing myself to make those lip syncs, the movie reviews, and all that stuff, that just allows me to take a lot of the skills that I learned from that and put it back into Backlog Battle and make better videos, basically. So like the acting stuff that I, and the way that I emote in like lip syncs, I can bring that into Backlog Battle and maybe make skits or something later or something. I haven't really figured that out, but I've always seen these other projects as opportunities to be better creatively. And I love making stuff. Like, I told my parents one time that I'll probably be in my 80s or 90s making YouTube videos and TikToks. And of course she scoffed at me because, like old people just can't like really see like the value in what we do. But I genuinely do love creating. And if I can be as old as Britta making videos and stuff, like I'll freaking do it. I'll definitely do it. But anyways, so bottom line, Lexi will show up on Backlog Battle at some point in the future, but she does have her channel. Hopefully you all like check it out. It's not a lot of content there. I do apologize. Anyways, that is a lot of stuff. I am looking at the recording right now and it's like pretty dang long, and I am going to chop this down a bit, and hopefully you do find something, about this video that is entertaining, informative, and hopefully y'all visit like LegitLexine on YouTube and TikTok, because I do feel like visiting those is kind of like, in a way, catching a glimpse of the future of Backlog Battle in terms of like the way that its production values are going to improve, and also like some of the fun stuff that we can make. And I think that to me is like literally the most exciting thing. And I do want to make it clear, in case you're wondering, like, I don't want Backlog Battle to be about me transitioning into a female. I think I've been very clear about that. But again, this is me being very insecure and wanting people to understand where I'm coming from, and, with the fear of being misunderstood. I want Backlog Battle to be about the games, which is why Lexi will only show up when she's absolutely ready. But everywhere else, she'll be there, imperfect as she is, and you can follow her journey in those places. Bottom line, Backlog Battle is all about JRPGs, indies, niche games, and more, if it allows it. And it will definitely stay that way. And we'll always make some really cool videos, whether I'm male or female. And quite honestly, I think that's a wrap for that. So anyways, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Whatever that's going to be, because my freaking house is like being renovated right now. All right. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.